All right, guys, before we get started, are there any questions over the homework? Questions over any of the homework problems or problems that you need to see worked? Yes. Everybody has a note sheet? Questions on homework before we start the notes? Now, one of the things we do, I try to start the class off with is homework questions. So if there's any of them that you got stumped on, weren't sure on, ask. We'll go over them together and answer those questions. That way we can get that cleared up. So if you do get stuck on one of the problems, you can either A, take a picture of it, email me, I'll get back with you pretty quickly, or we can go over here at the start. Don't spend hours stuck on the same problem. If you get stuck, ask. I will help. Now, since there aren't any homework questions, we're going to go on and start our note sheet today. And the note sheet today is going to be very similar to what we did Thursday, except for a lot of these here are A, the value in front of x squared is not going to be 1. We're going to have a number different than 1 on pretty much all of these here. And if we look at the first one here, 7x squared minus 31x minus 20, we first look for a greatest common factor. Is there a number or term that will go into all three? So we'll move on to step 2, our 2 sets of parentheses with 3 spaces. And then the next thing I try to find is the sign. And to find the sign, I always look at the third term. If the third term is positive, the signs are the same and match the sign of the middle term. If the third term is negative, our signs are opposite. Well, here the third term is negative, so our signs are going to be positive and negative. At this point here, we need to find the factors of the first and third term. So we're trying to find the factors of 7x squared and 20. So our 7x squared, well, the x squared's only factors are x and x. Factors of 7 are 7 and 1. There's only one set. So we need to figure out where we want to put the 7 and the 1. So we can say 7 in the first, 1 in the second. But since it's 1x, we don't necessarily need to put the 1 because it's understood. Factors of 20. One and 20, 10, 4 and 5, 5 and 4. So we list them out because there are a few more than 7. 7, there was only 1. So looking at these 3 here, which one do we want to try first? 4 and 5. So we can just plug these in. And again, at this point, we can check. Now, I'm not going to check 7x and x. 7x times x is 7x squared. But we got 7x and x from the factors of 7x squared. Our 4 times negative 5 will indeed get us back to negative 20. So that's not the ones we're more focused on. We're focused on making sure we get the negative 31x. Now, our 7x times negative 5 is negative 35x. Our positive 4 times x would be plus 4x. And negative 35x plus 4x is negative 31x. Is that the middle term we wanted? So our factors for this here are 7x plus 4 times x minus 5. Now we could also have written this as x minus 5 times 7x plus 4. This is also correct because, again, we can multiply any two things in any order. So both of these would work. I just need one of them. We just need to have it at least listed as one of these two ways. Questions on this here? Questions on any of this so far? Let's look at the next one. 2b squared plus 17b plus 21. Is there a greatest common factor? No, so we can move on to our second step. Two sets of parentheses with three spaces. Third term is positive. So the signs are the same and match the sign of the middle term, which is also positive. So our two signs are plus and plus. Now we need to find the factors of the first and third term. Factors of 2b squared. Well, we will have b and b. Factors of 2 are 2 and 1. So we need to put the 2 somewhere. First, 2b and b. Factors of 21, well, is there more than one? Yeah. 3 and 7, 1 and 21. Which one of these two do we want to try first? 3 and 7. Which one do we want to go first? And 7. If we check this here, 2b times 7 is 14b. Positive 3 times b is positive 3b, so we do plus 3b. And 14b plus 3b is... Questions on any of this here? Since that is the middle term we wanted. 2b plus 3 times b plus 7. Any questions on any of this here? All right. There's no questions on that there. Let's look at the next one. 7x squared minus 45x minus 28. Is there a greatest common factor between these three terms? 7, because 7 does go into 7, and 7 does go into 28, because that's 4 times 7. Yes? $45 divided by 7 is this here. So unfortunately, 7 does not go into all three. It goes into 2 of them. But for us to be able to factor it out, it needs to divide into all 3. So since it's not a greater common factor of all 3, we can't factor it out. So we have our 2 sets of parentheses with 3 spaces. Now we find the sign, or I normally find the sign next. Since the third term is negative, our signs are opposite. One's going to be positive, one is going to be negative. Now at this point here, we need to find the factors of the first and third term. So our factors of 7x squared, well, we would have x and x. 7 and 1. Because factors of 7, the only factors of 7 are 7 and 1. So we just need to plug those in. If there's only one set of factors, might as well go on and stick them in. 28, on the other hand, does not have one set of factors. It actually has 3, because we do have 1 and 28, 2 and 14, 4 and 7. Which one do we want to try first? Which one do we want to put first? At this point here, we can check this here. 7x times negative 4 is negative 28x. 7 times x is going to be plus 7x. And negative 28x plus 7x is negative 21x. So we can flip it, and we'll flip it in a minute, the 4 and 7. Now, if we look at the first set of parentheses, is there a greatest common factor between 7x and 7? So as it's written here, the first set of parentheses is 7x plus 7, yes? Is there a greatest common factor between those two? No, because since there is a greatest common factor of 7, we could factor it out, yes? If we could factor it out in one of the parentheses, it means that there was 1 to begin with, yes? So this is not a set rule, but it's more if there's not a greatest common factor to begin with or we've already removed it, neither parentheses can have 1, which tells me that having a 7 in the first set of parentheses most likely will not work. So we could have the 7 in the other set. And we could try this here. 7x times negative 7. 7 times negative 7 is negative 49x. 4 times x is positive 4x plus 4x. And negative 49x plus 4x is so these are the correct set of factors. So seeing that, the fact that there is no greatest common factor to begin with, it kind of helps me see, make a different color, this one will work, that the numbers that go in here with the 7, well, we can't have the 7, 14, or 28 be here, because 7, 14, and 28 would give us a greatest common factor with our 7x, and it could be factored out. And since there's not anything to be factored out, we can't have those together. Questions on this here? And even if you don't see that, that's fine, because when we check it, it's not going to give us the correct middle term. (5p squared minus p minus 18). Is there a greatest common factor? No. So we'll have our 2 sets of parentheses with 3 spaces. Find the sign. Third term for this one here is what? So third term would be our negative 18. Since it's negative, our signs are opposite, positive and negative. It really doesn't matter which one we set as positive and which one is negative. We just need to pick one as positive, one as negative. Factors of the first and third term. Well, our first term is 5p squared. Well, our p squared would be p and p. And factors of 5 are 1 and 5. Are there any others? No. So we can go on and plug those in. 5 and 1. Are there more than one set of factors for 18? Yes, because we have 1 and 18, 3 and 6, 2 and 9. Which one do we want to try first? 2 and 9, which one's first? 2 and 9. Questions on how we set this up or anything we've done so far? At this point here, we can check this here. 5p times 9 is negative 45p. Because our 5 times 9, negative 9 would be negative 45. We still have the p. Positive 2 times p is positive 2p, or plus 2p. Negative 45p plus 2p is negative 43p. Is that the middle term we wanted? So we can still flip the 2 and 9. (5p times negative 2 is negative 10p. 9 times p is positive 9p, or plus 9p. And negative 10p plus 9p is negative 1p, or just negative p, which is the middle term we wanted. Questions on any of this here? Are you ready for the next one? We'll do this one here and then we'll move on. Is there a greatest common factor between these 3 terms? No. So we'll do our 2 sets of parentheses with 3 spaces. Since the third term is negative, our signs are opposite. One's going to be positive, one is going to be negative. Now at this point here, we're going to look at the factors of the first and third terms. So 10 has 2 factors. So this is the first one we've had today that has 2. Because 10 could be 1 and 10 or 2 and 5. But our variable m squared only has 1 set of factors. It's just m and m. Since it came first in those first spots, we're definitely going to have m and m. So we need to choose 1 and 10 or 2 and 5. So we can do 10 and 1 first. Now the other one's the factors of 9. 1 and 9 or 3 and 3. Which one do we want to try first? 3 and 3. And we can check this here. 10m times negative 3 is negative 30m. 3 times m is plus 3m. And negative 30m plus 3m is negative 27m. Is that the middle term we wanted? No. Yes, we can flip. Well, we can flip the 3 and 3, but that would give us the same thing, yes? So we can switch it to the 1 and 9, because flipping the 3 and 3 wouldn't give us anything different. Flipping the 1 and 10 would give us the same thing. Then we would have to switch out the 10 and 1 and try it again with 2 and 5. 10m times negative 9 is negative 90m. 1 times m is plus 1m. And negative 90m plus m is negative. Is that the middle term we wanted? No, but yes, because it is the correct number, but wrong sign. Now, it would be very tempting to switch the 1 and 9 to try to get the correct one. Now, if we'd had m and m, or the numbers in front of m were the same, that would work just fine. Here, we would just switch the signs. Because if we get the correct number but wrong sign, we want to switch the sign because we still want that 10m and 9 being multiplied together. We still want that 1 and m, but we need it to be positive 10n times positive 9 to give us positive 90m. Our negative 1 times n is negative m. And 90 minus m is positive 89. Is that the one we wanted? Because if we wanted to keep it the plus in the first one and minus in the second, we would have to flip because we got the correct middle term but wrong sign. Because on the previous one we got negative 89m, we needed positive 89m. Now we could have left the plus first minus second, but to do that we would have to flip the 1 and 9 and m and 10m. We'd have to flip everything. So instead of changing 4 terms, we can just change the signs and get to the same place. Questions on this here? We feel pretty comfortable with this here. In that case, we're going to skip this one here and go to this one here. 28 n to the 4th plus 16n cubed minus 80n squared. Is there a greatest common factor? What is it? Because 8 does go into 16 and 80. Well, not 24, is it 28? So 28 divided by 8 is 28 divided by 4 is 7. And 4 does go into 16 and 80. So 4 is a greatest common factor. 4, yes. Is there anything else in common with all three? It has a square, but it's not 4. What else is in common with everything? So here, when we did quadratics, we didn't have the n squared, the variable, because quadratics, this is not a quadratic, this is a quartic. But because we do have a variable in common with all three, we can factor it out. Now, the number or the exponent attached to the variable we remove will always be the smallest exponent there. So 4, 3, 2, since 2 is the smallest exponent, that's how many we can remove from all three. Questions on this here? Now, when we factor out a 4n squared from 28 into the fourth, well, 28 divided by 4 is 7. And when I divide an n squared out, or I move 2 n's from n to the fourth, we're left with n squared. Plus, our 16 divided by 4 is 4. And when we remove 2 n's from n to the third, we're left with n. Minus, our 80 divided by 4 is 20. And the n squared factors out completely. Then we can move on to our two sets of parentheses. Here, the third term is negative, so our signs are opposite. Because if the third term is negative, our signs are opposite. If the third term is positive, our signs are the same and match the sign of the middle term. Now we can look at the factors of the first and third term. Factors of the first term, 7n squared. Well, we would indeed have n and n. Now we do need to place the 7 somewhere. Do we want to put it in the first or second spot? Within first. Since there's only one set of factors for 7, we're just going to go on and plug the 7 in. Now factors with 20. Well, factors of 20 are 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 4 and 5. Which one do we want to try first? 4 and 5. And we can check this here, and we're looking for a 4n. 7 times negative 5 is negative 35n. 4 times n is plus 4n, telling us that we have negative 31n. Since that's not the middle term we want, we can switch the 4 and 5. So we flip the 4 and 5, and we're going to try this again. 7n times negative 4 is negative 28n. 5 times n is plus 5n, giving us negative 23n. We switch the sign if we get the correct number but wrong sign. Because if we switch the signs for this one here, it would turn the 28 from negative to positive, turn the 5n from positive to negative, making it positive 23n instead of negative. 2 and 10. So we can go up because both of those didn't work. So we can move on to the next one. 2 and 10. 7n times negative 10 is negative n. 2 times n is plus 2n. And negative 70 plus 2n is negative 68n. So we can switch 10 and 2. 10, 2. 7n times negative 2 is negative 14n. 10 times n is plus 10n. And negative 14n plus 10n is Negative 4n. Is that the middle term we wanted?
No, you just switched.
Well, no and yes. Because no is the wrong sign, correct? But what number are we looking for? We're looking for it to be 4. Is it 4? Yeah, but the issue is that this is negative, not positive. If we get the correct number but wrong sign, all we need to do is switch the sign. No, since we factored the 4 out, we're not looking for the 16 anymore. Questions on this here? Questions on any of this so far? We ready for the next one? 3b cubed minus 5b squared plus 2b. Is there a greatest common factor between these three terms? B. They do all have a b in common. And this here will just be b to the first. Questions? Now, since the smallest exponent with this is 1, we can only remove 1b from all three terms. And if we remove a b from 3b cubed, we're left with 3b squared. If we remove a b from b squared, 5b squared, we're left with 5b plus 2. So we removed 1b from all three, giving us b squared b in our number. So at this point here, we're looking for negative 5b. Now, the third term would be 1 and 2 for our factors, and since it's positive, our signs are the same and match the sign of the middle term, which in this case is minus a negative. So we'd have negative and negative. Then we'd have 1 and 2 for our factors of 2. 3b squared. So we would have b and b for b squared. 1 and 3. So where do we want to put the 3? Questions on how we set this up? So let's see. 3b times negative 2 is negative 6b. Negative 1 times b is negative b, giving us negative 7b. Since we wanted negative 5, we need to switch the 1 and 2 and see if that gives us the middle term we want. So 3b times negative 1 is negative 3b. Negative 2 times b is negative 2b. And negative 3b minus 2b is negative 5b. So b times 3b minus 2 times b minus 1 is the correct answer. Questions on any of this here? This one here is going to be the last one we do today. Now, when we look at this one here, 30n squared b, negative 87nb, and 30b, we need to find the greatest common factor between these three terms. There is one. So the first term does have n squared, the second term has n, but the third term does not have an n, so we can't factor it out. And 3. Because 30 and 30 do have a common factor of 3 and 10. 87 is not divisible by 10, but it is by 3. So we can factor 3b out of all three terms. If we factor the 3 out of 30, we're left with 10. We still have the n squared. and the b factors out completely, minus 29, as we already have seen, n, and the b factors out completely. And then plus 10. So we divided the 3 out of 30 n squared b and gets 10 n squared, and the b factors out. The middle term, 87 divided by our 3 is 29. We still have the b factors out completely. And last one becomes just 10. Two sets of parentheses with 3 spaces. Since the third term is positive, our signs are the same and match the sign of the middle term, which is negative. So we have negative and negative. Factors of the first term are 10n squared, but we will still have n and n. But our factors of 10 are 1 and 10 or 2 and 5. Which one do we want to try first? 2 and 5. 5 first. That's fine. We can put the 5 first. 2 second. Factors of our third term, so factors of 10 would be 1 and 10 or 2 and 5. Which one do we want to try first? 2 first, 5 second. Because again, we said we removed all the greatest common factors, yes? So that means with the 5n, we can't put the 5 with it, and 2n can't put 2. Otherwise, we'd have 2 more common factors. Now, if we check this here, the middle term we're wanting is negative 29n. 5n times 5, negative 5 is negative 25n. Our negative 2 times 2n is negative 4n. And negative 25n minus 4n is indeed negative 29n, which is the middle term we wanted. And that's nice job. You're welcome. Thank you. And by the way, guys, there is a back to this worksheet.